Hey, friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
Hey, Larson.
What?
Let's answer some questions. What do you say?
All right. Taylor Sexton, which is more palatable? A great wrestling character with limited wrestling ability or an amazing technical wrestler without any charisma?
Oh, man. See, dude, I'm into it for the characters. So I'm not saying he's got limited wrestling ability. I think he's terrific. When I think of Eddie Kingston, I don't necessarily think, oh, he's like a 5-star match guy. I think this guy's a tremendous character. I would much rather see anything Eddie Kingston related than Claudio match.
That one's tough. I guess it depends on what are the limits of no charisma. Does that mean they can't drop a promo, but in the ring show some charisma, or just complete charisma vacuum where there's like nothing to latch onto as a viewer emotionally?
So I'm not going to say that he's that, but when I think of a guy who's a great technical wrestler, but he doesn't really connect as a character, I think of Claudio. So just take Claudio as your example.
All right. I mean, if the debate is essentially,
I guess the other thing is name a character that is limited. Like, what's the other side of that? If it's Claudio, what's the other side of that? Because Kingston is a good wrestler.
Yeah, he is a good wrestler. He is a good wrestler. I'm trying to think of someone who is just all personality, and in terms of what they do in the ring is fairly limited. But like, there's not a whole lot of wrestlers who are like that these days.
I know the talent pool's too deep. Like, you kind of can't be that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess, okay, I don't know, man. Let's go back in time a little bit. It's not. Yeah, it depends on how limited we're talking about when it comes to the matches. Like Hulk Hogan, right?
Yeah.
Nothing but charisma.
But
and here
every
in the
match
United
was
States,
essentially paint by numbers, yeah.
Every match was the same.
Yeah.
Versus, like, when you go back then, I don't know, who is just strictly a great technical wrestler. I'd probably tune in for Hulk Hogan, to be honest with you. Okay, there you go. Jorge D. Dean Malenko.
Yeah.
His matches were so good, though.
They were really good.
So I don't know.
I mean, for me, I watch wrestling for the art of professional wrestling first and foremost. So I'd probably lean the better wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
But today, there's so few wrestlers who are that one-dimensional.
Like, I don't know, man. I
mean, Jorge D. here mentioned Sid. Sid really couldn't wrestle at all, but he was such a interesting character that you couldn't take your eyes off him.
Bro, he was not an interesting character. He just had the energy.
Well, that's what I meant. That's what made him interesting, was his energy. You couldn't he had that natural,
you couldn't take your eyes off
charisma. Yeah, you couldn't take your eyes off him.
That's for sure. The Miz, which one would the Miz be? The Miz is sort of mid at both things.
Yeah, I don't really feel like he's such a great character that could overcome his shortcomings in the ring, but I don't feel like he's really that great of a technical wrestler either.
I mean, that's sort of like the worst of everything, right? Like somebody who's like, I don't really care about him as a character, but I'm not going to get up to watch his matches either.
Yeah, so Wraith here says Lance Storm, but at least some of his dullness was intentional. That was his character, was his lack of charisma.
Oh, that's why he was great.
And that was amazing.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's a good question. It's just definite. It's difficult to sort of.
But the thing too, it also depends on the technical wrestler. Now, if it's a technical wrestler, but their technical style was kind of dull. Mm-hmm. But if they're like, for example, Dean Malenko, you put him in the ring. Yeah, he didn't have a ton of charisma, but his matches were exciting because he was so good. When I think of
amazing technical wrestler, it means Dean Malenko. Like that is a perfect example.
If it's the choice between Malenko and Hogan, give me Malenko.
If it's a choice between Malenko and like a guy who was super limited in the ring but had nothing but charisma, it's like Ultimate Warrior, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Like, I don't want to see that shit.
No, I never really understood the appeal of the whole Warrior thing. Never really.
But I don't know if Kingston couldn't put on good matches, and it was Kingston versus Malenko. I don't know. Kingston, as a character, can give you so much in the ring that doesn't have anything to do with technical wrestling,
Yeah.
then that's a more difficult decision for me.
Oh,
and
yeah,
I'd probably still go with Kingston because, my God, he is compelling. Like, Warrior was never compelling. So if it's a compelling character, then give me the Eddie Kingston over the Dean Malenko.
Well, I think the way they presented Malenko as the Iceman, like he was emotionless, and he was in there from a technical standpoint.
Probably by necessity, though.
Oh, I'm sure it was, but he's in there in the ring picking opponents apart from a technical perspective to defeat them. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a compelling story. It can be because, how is he going to do it this time?
Yeah.
His opponent has time to scout and prepare. Well, how is Malenko going to overcome that?
Maggie has such a great point. She says, I think Eddie teeters between being compelling underdog and being corny overdoing it. It's always that with Eddie, though. Like, Eddie is always on the verge of, like, tears or, like, like, can we just get a little bit more of Eddie eating some Reese's pie? And even he probably does that with intensity.
Probably.
This pie, Chris. Every bite of this pie is for one of your sins, Chris.
Mayor Planet Houston?
Yeah.
Asks, what's worse? Viking Raiders shields or Bludgeon Brothers rubber mallets?
They both look very cheap. But
what might be worse, though, is Drew's sword when he cut the top rope and that thing was bent.
It bent. Yeah. And God bless Corey Graves, most handsome man in wrestling. He tried to sell it as, do you know how much force is necessary to bend such a tough... I'm like, man.
No, that's a cheap sword, Corey.
It's just a cheap sword. I used to live in the UK where swords are prevalent. And I've been to many a museum where I've seen actual sword, and those things look heavy, and they look very firm.
Yes.
Drew's looks like neither.
No.
Like whenever even when he does the thing, it's like wah, 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 wah.
I know. They're like Party City swords, essentially.
That being said, the mallet, I would say, is probably better because at least you could swing it. There's some heft there, whereas this shields, all you can do is just do this.
Yeah.
And if you try to Captain America that thing, it's gonna be wobbly because it's not like smooth.
No. Jason Lewis, what is the next Discovery Network's tie-in AEW should implement? I want Ghost Adventures.
Okay.
With Danhausen.
Yeah.
Hunting ghosts.
Oh, that's great. Yes. Very nice.
Danhausen trying to curse some ghosts.
So this is what I want because Bama is a huge fan right now of Expedition Unknown.
Oh yeah. So, with Josh Gates.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah. I know that show.
Yeah. So Expedition Parts Unknown.
Oh, good.
Let's see here. Blake Whitehouse says, are we done with the era where people win the world championship more than 10 times?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Like, okay, at the end of the day, let's say Theory fulfills his potential. He ain't going to be John Cena levels of champion.
No.
It's going to be they've moved towards longer reigns as opposed to
Yeah. Stefan Anderson, do you guys think Royal Rumble and Money in the Bank winners should be for main eventers? Because Stefan says, I feel like main eventers don't need it. It should be for those who need a little boost or push to get help to where they can be seen as main eventers. What do you guys think? Honestly, it's just, for me, it's more about stories. I don't care in that sense. If it's a good story, if it's a main eventer, it's a mid-carder, if there's a good story, especially for a mid-carder that can launch them up into the main event and it's believable, yeah.
That's that right there. It's so like you could theoretically tell a good story with Money in the Bank and like a scrub.
Yeah.
But like I feel like it should be somebody kind of like Seth Rollins was the perfect example because it was a guy who just needed that sort of reason, that sort of beat to launch himself into the main event, but clearly he was ready for it. So I feel like that's usually where you want to go as opposed to, hey, have Brock Lesnar win it. But again, that wasn't a terrible story beat with Brock Lesnar. So yeah, it does sort of depend on the story. And if they can come up with a good story for Austin Theory, it's just so far. And I know we have a very small sample size.
They haven't done it yet.
I'm not into it. Like running around I thought that was so cringy. Him running around Roman. I wasn't into it at all.
No, I wasn't that keen on it either. F-Pop Entertainment, who's the best fictional wrestler?
So most successful fictional wrestler? Let's talk about that. Randy the Ram, I think he was sort of like a upper mid card guy,
or
was he a main event guy? I don't know.
Was Captain Insano the champion?
I think he was a top guy, but I think that was like a regional thing. I think Randy the Ram was like the top of the B team.
Yeah.
I think he was like...
Oh, Consumable Pete says Jimmy King for Ready to Rumble. WCW champion.
But during WCW's dying days?
Well, was it presented as WCW's dying days in Ready to Rumble?
That's a good point.
Oh, it's Vern Gagne as Wrestling Office's champion. That's the answer. Next question.
I'm gonna throw this out there.
All right.
I think it's Thunder Lips. Because he was tussling with the heavyweight boxing champion.
That's true.
I'm gonna say Thunder Lips.
All right. Nikyle asks, both of you are co-hosts of Wrestling Press Your Luck. Three contestants are one wrestler from WWE, AEW, New Japan. Gosh, I can't talk today. Who gets the most whammies and who wins all the money? Baron Corbin is WWE's representative, and he gets most whammies. He whammies out. It's Baron Corbin.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. Who gets the most whammies? Who gets the most whammies?
Yeah,
so
Baron.
Baron's from WWE. I'm sorry. Then who wins all the money? I feel like it should be Baron, MJF, and Tanahashi, and I think Tanahashi wins all the money.
I was going to say Okada, and Okada gets all the money.
That's good too. Oh yeah, Okada. Yeah, Okada dollars. Yeah.
Kind of
Sean Chan says, if Cody can't make the Rumble, who goes to Mania? We've talked about this. It's got to be The Rock.
Yeah, The Rock's got to win the Rumble then, unless they split up the titles.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a way they can write that without The Rock winning the Rumble. And if not, they have to split those titles. Unless, but you came up with the other scenario. Roman wins the Rumble. Griselda Rodriguez says, how much of a draw is CM Punk?
I mean, if you ask Tony Khan, massive.
He's a plus delta.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that Tony Khan is an analytics guy, and so I honestly firmly believe that he's taken a look at the numbers and has come to the understanding that he is a draw and he is a big deal for the company. So regardless of what your opinion is on CM Punk, I kind of trust. I mean, I don't see it benefiting Tony Khan for him to say, "Oh, this guy is the plus delta," if he's not. I don't see how it would benefit him.
Yeah. Deep voice dude here says, obviously a WWE versus AEW show will never happen, but if it did, what city would it take place in? But in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, I was gonna say New York or Chicago. Yeah, Madison Square Garden. Yeah. Let's see here. Nate Blakely says, Karen Q has been dramatically different characters and both got over. Who else can be given odd gimmicks and make them both work? So I think we're kind of seeing that with Elias and Ezekiel. It's not like he's like a huge departure from Elias, but I feel like he's the kind of talent who could do that.
You look at the type of characters that Matt Hardy has gotten over.
Oh, yeah, that's a great example.
Matt Hardy, version 2 is wildly different from Delete Matt Hardy versus all of the different Matt Hardy iterations there's been. And he's managed to find a way to get them all over.
Yeah, there you go. Anyways, that's going to do it for us. Hey, do us a favor. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. And hit us up on the Patreon at patreon.com/Stephen Larson. How about this? Diana Jott here says, if AEW and New Japan have a Forbidden Door show, what is your dream match card for that show? Have we done that recently? Have we answered that question recently? Because I think that's a great topic for maybe Overrun tomorrow, Larson. What do you say?
All right, sure. Let's do that.
All right, so patreon.com/Stephen Larson will be our bonus podcast for the week. We're going to book an AEW WWE Super Show. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate it. Until next time, we'll talk to you later.
Goodbye.